We are getting into trimester 3, so I thought it would be a really good opportunity to share my birth plan, preferences, intentions. Obviously, birth doesn't always go the way that you would like or you dreamed of, and that is understandable. I'm not sitting here and being like, this is exactly what I want. If it doesn't go this way, everything else sucks. But I think in terms of birth plans and preferences and modes of delivery and things, understanding why you choose a particular thing and looking through where your options are and where they might not be as strong is such a powerful move from a female point of view. And I guess I want to share this video because I have never had a baby before. I've never been in labour. And so for me, I'm not really sure what to expect, but knowing my options and where they are and what sort of decisions I need assistance about, for example, before I put them in my birth plan, yeah, it's really important. So first and foremost, we are actually giving birth in what you call like a birth centre. So in Australia, there's lots of different options to give birth. We're really lucky that we have quite a good maternity system here. So we've chosen to give birth in a birth centre in the public system. So basically what that means is instead of it being a hospital sort of system, it's more of a holistic, I guess you could say, cross between home birth and hospital birth. So it's still within the hospital spectrum, but it's not as medicalised. You've got a midwife, there's no doctors around. And if you do need emergency care, such as an epidural, C-section, or even episiotomy, you have to go, actually no, I think episiotomy the midwife can do. I don't know. That's something that I need to check. But yeah, we have to go to another hospital about half an hour away, which I think for some is like, oh my gosh, that's too far away. But for us, I feel really lucky that we don't have, I guess, that sort of really easy access to that sort of stuff. So it will make us, I guess, think a little bit more about the decisions. But yeah, so I guess I'll start with the early labour. So, early labour is, I guess, labour that's not active. So active is like, I think you have like a cervical dilation of 6 or something. So essentially it's just like the labour that happens first before it gets quite intense. And for us, we want to labour as long as we can at home, which is so important for me because being at home, safe environment, there's no distractions. We've got Ziggy here, TJ, and then our friend will be there as well. And yeah, it's just a little bit more comfortable than being in a birth centre, in my opinion. So I've got my list here of all the things I've written down. But something that's really important to me is the environment in which I labour in. So something that's dimly lit, there's not as much noise, there's beautiful music in terms of the surrounding kind of atmosphere. And I would really like some aromatherapy diffuser or the like around, because it's something that really calms me down. I can't imagine, you know, labouring in a really noisy environment with like light everywhere. It just doesn't feel good for me. The other thing I want to make sure of is got heaps of water bottles around and heaps of water and heaps of snacks, and a language that I want to really make sure is sort of said in the beginning parts of labour in particular is, rather than contractions which feel really medical, surges, and surges are not as harsh sounding, I find. So that's what I really want in terms of environment. And then mobility, like I've looked into a lot of research around the importance of gravity in labour, especially in that sort of early phase when you can move around a lot more. So for example, I would love to be able to walk to the beach if I can, or for example, walk around the room and move around where I can, because sitting still for me just doesn't feel natural to do while in labour, even though I haven't been in labour. But for me, I'm like, I can't imagine sitting that still. So be able to move around is really important for me in the early stages of labour, and then having other props like a birthing bowl or something like that where I can. When it comes to support, we've decided to have obviously TJ there, and then one of our really good friends there as well, in case TJ needs a break or in case something, I don't know, we need to get something or whatever, we've got 2 people there in case. With pain management, because I'm aiming for a non-pharmaceutical birth, we are I guess I'm trying to avoid as much medical management as possible, but with the early stages, more than happy to use something like a TENS machine, and some, using some beautiful acupressure techniques that I'll show to DJ, and then kind of hot and cold towels and stuff like that, massages, all that fun stuff, and then bath or shower if I need. But I have heard that having a bath in the earlier stage of labour can slow it down a little bit because it's so relaxing, so I'll have to see what happens there. But yeah, basically that is sort of the early stage of labour, and we'll see what happens. When we get in the active stage, which midwife actually said to us the other day, you're in that stage when you can't really talk. So that'll be funny. But yeah, I'm hoping that by that stage we can make our way to the birth suite. It's something that I'm really conscious of doing, is not making that transition terribly crazy or erratic or stressful, because you think about giving birth, you need to feel safe, you need to feel comforted, you need to feel secure. Going in a car for 20 minutes, bumping around and stuff, doesn't feel the most comfortable for me. So, making sure that where I can, avoiding as much light as possible, still being calm in my own space, all that sort of stuff while we transition to the hospital, super, super important. In terms of the environment at the hospital, really lucky, like we know what room we're giving birth in, we know what it looks like. We are so blessed in that sense. We're not just going to a random room, whatever's available that day. So the actual room has like a bath, a queen bed, heaps of space for moving around. And we'll also have things like fairy lights, diffusers, birthing bowl, peanut bowl, birth seat, all that sort of stuff if we want. The other thing that I really want to make sure is in that time, and this is important for me, but also for the labouring process, is avoid as much sort of conversations happening and hectic, just like people moving in and out. I obviously haven't given birth before, but I can't imagine trying to be in your own space and then like doctors and nurses and people coming in and out of the room that you don't know, you've never met. So yeah, only where possible, having the people that I've met and created a connection with to have in the room, and try and avoid as much walking in and out and in and out as possible. And the other thing I want to do is make sure that I'm wearing my own clothes, because having a robe on feels very medical and I don't feel comfortable with that. Saying when it comes to mobility, I don't want to feel like I have to stay on the bed. Thankfully, if I don't have an epidural, it's not needed. I don't have to sit on a bed. But having space to move around, and on the floor, having a rug if I need to, or in the bath or whatever, being able to move around and help gravity with the process, super important. And then having those bowls there and stuff like that. Medical wise and medication wise, I feel like this is really controversial, but for me, it's really important. It's a massive value of mine to be able to empower myself as much as possible, so I don't feel the need to rely on those medical interventions if it isn't medically needed. Of course, if things are going south and these things need to be administered, I'm accepting that, and that's what I put in my birth plan. But if it's not, then I don't want to feel like, yeah, that's the first point of call. So I do have, my goal is to have a non-medicated, unpharmaceutical birth. And if possible, not offering me any pain management, medical pain management or medications, gas, epidural or anything like that, unless I personally ask. As I said before, if I want an epidural, I have to travel 20 minutes down the road. So I don't know if I really want to do that, but yeah, not offering it unless I ask, because I know it exists. I'm not going to, be silly in labour and be like, what's an epidural? I know what it is and I know it exists. So if I really want it, I feel like I will ask. But yeah, the other thing as well, which is important to me, is as I move around the room, I don't really want IV or ports or any continuous heart rate monitors on my belly or anything like that. And that's just because I have looked around in the evidence and the continuous heart rate monitors aren't always, haven't really been shown to be that beneficial whatsoever. And IV, I won't need an IV unless I'm getting an epidural or there's some, things such as dehydration going on, which I can't imagine will be the case. But if it is, it is. But yeah, where possible, avoiding all of those things so I can move around as much as possible. The only thing as well that I'm on the fence about, but I feel like I'll just know, hopefully know in the moment, around cervical dilation monitoring. So that's when you know, your midwife or your obstetrician goes, okay, she's 3 centimeters dilated, she's 4 centimeters dilated. Even though it is one way that we can measure the progress of labor, looking into the research and stuff, there's actually a lot of contradictions, and some people can go from 2 to 10 in an hour, when some people go from 2 to 10 in 16 hours. So it just depends, and I'm going to try and avoid that and use other methods of progress in labour that my midwife can use, such as how I'm sounding, what I'm doing, how I'm feeling, how I'm interacting, pain and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, where I can, I would like to avoid that, just because, yeah, I don't think it's that necessary. Of course, everyone's in their own opinion of that, but yeah, for me, it doesn't feel the need, unless I want to, unless I ask, of course, then I will. It may be something that we do, say, as soon as I get to the hospital or the birth centre, and then other than that, maybe not. The only thing that I might ask is getting what we call a sterile water injection, which sounds super weird, but it's literally just sterile water put into your back, and it helps with pain management, and it can be as effective as something like an epidural. It is painful, same with the epidural, I guess, but it is painful in the first couple of seconds of getting it, but it could be something, because it means that I can still use the bath even if I get it done, whereas if I have an epidural, no water birth. Yeah, the same thing when it comes to pain management, natural pain management, acupressure, breathing, massage, hot towels, warm towels, whatever. And I would love as well to have those positive affirmations being said through the midwife, friend, or TJ, just because I just love positive affirmations. So the next thing I've got here is the delivery. So we've gone through early labour, then active labour, then the delivery, or like the transition phase. So that's when the baby's like literally being born. Same goes with the environment. We are aiming for a water birth. So basically giving birth in the bath where we can. Obviously that's assuming that everything else goes smoothly, but that's the aim of the water birth. So I'm not too sure when they you know, tell you to go into the bath or anything like that. That's something that I need to check with my midwife. But yeah, a water birth is something that I've always wanted to do and I've always been gravitating towards. So the couple of things I've got here is same thing, limited voices, minimal people walking around, wearing my own clothes. Because it's my first birth, I would actually really like to be coached through to an extent. Like, I feel like if I don't want to, I'll say, it's fine, I've got this. But being able to have those people, supportive people, sharing, you know, what to do or what, you know, not to do, how to breathe and things like that in that space could be really helpful. I don't know, but I've written that down. And then the other thing as well is I'd prefer to not be on my back and moving around in the bath how I please too. Obviously, being somebody who doesn't want a pharmaceutical intervention, no induction where possible. I know that kind of happens early labour, but I wrote it here for some reason, I don't know why. And do not offer any medical pain management unless asked. And the other thing as well is, where possible, no forceps or vacuum or episiotomy. Obviously, it's not always the case, and sometimes you have to, but yeah, where possible, that's, yeah, my preference. And then when if the baby is crowding, for example, in the bath, then making sure that I can have, you know, feel the heads and be the first one to touch it. And then also the mirror, the midwife's able to, you know, able to use a mirror if they want to. I don't really mind about that. The after delivery, I feel like when people do their birth plan, they go like, okay, that's the birth plan, that's the birth, see you later, I don't really care about anything else. But I think the post-delivery is actually a really important part of looking at your birth plan, because, you know, although we can't necessarily plan the birth necessarily. There are things that we can implement in the after delivery space sometimes that are really, really powerful in terms of, I guess, cementing and processing the birth, but then also postpartum too, such as feeding or, even how you're feeling around sort of emotions and stuff like that after. So that's why I'm doing the after delivery as well in my birth plan. Immediately following the birth, if it is in the bath or even if it's not, 1 hour skin to skin, the golden hour, whatever you want to call it, so important for me. If the baby is well, of course. Where I can, being able to allow the baby to latch naturally, maybe with assistance if required, but that's super important. And then Tej can hold the baby, after that. But that connection with the baby for breastfeeding purposes is so important to me. When it comes to like wiping the baby down, I don't want the baby to be wiped down. I want that vernix to still stay on because I know how powerful it is. So where possible, not wipe the baby down or anything like that, at least in the first couple of hours, just so we can create that nice moisture for the baby's skin. In terms of the placental birth, so usually the placenta is physiologically birthed an hour, here or there of birth. Would love to delay cord clamping just to make sure that the baby is getting enough blood. And then also TJ can cut the cord when it's white, and a physiological placental birth where possible. So no oxytocin or pulling of the cord or anything like that, unless medically required. The other thing that I wrote down here is in case of a C-section or emergency C-section, it's obviously not in my birth plan, but it can still happen. And so having expectations around if it doesn't go right, what would you like to do is so important for me and for TJ, I'm sure. But in terms of an emergency C-section, ensuring that TJ is still present. And if, for example, I'm unconscious or not able to hold the baby or whatever, then TJ can work with that and he can hold the baby or whatever after the C-section. More than happy for photos and videos to be used if I give permission, depending on obviously my state. And then skin to skin where possible, and that golden hour immediately after a C-section where possible too. And if I can, delayed cord clamping. I know that sometimes C-sections can be a bit hit and miss with delayed cord clamping depending on why we're having the C-section, and then music in the operating theatre where possible and dimming the lights where possible. So that's basically it. I actually will list in the description some really beautiful books that I recommend, because before I became pregnant, knew nothing about birth. Like, I was like, yeah, you just give birth and that's it. And honestly, yeah, you just give birth and that's kind of it. But then also there's so many other layers to giving birth, and there's so many other facets, and being able to empower yourself and understand what sort of birth is your preference is actually such an incredible thing that we as women can do. And, putting ourselves in positions if we are have to make a choice, being able to make an informed choice without it being influenced by other people is so cool and powerful. We have the right to do that as women. But yeah, if you have any suggestions that we haven't actually thought about in the birth plan, let me know, because I'm sure I've missed some things, but those are the main things that we really have preferences about. And if you want to share this with anyone else, of course, who is also, going through pregnancy and also going to give birth soon, then please be welcome too. Also, make sure you follow along, like, subscribe, all that stuff. I know it's really corny, but really helps our channel, really helps us create more content for you guys. And yeah. Mwah.